some of the most iconic performances of all time. Personally, in my opinion, the best cast Nolan has worked with.
Every time you watched it, you're like, whoa, every time you learn something new and you notice something new.
But I think that Nolan's writing is at its best, and particularly in this movie when he's writing with his partner, his brother, Jonathan Nolan.
I'm gonna say this is the most complete Nolan film. Welcome to Backseat Directing,
where we talk about movies, TV shows, comics, and more.
We're your hosts,
Andrew
and Arron, with Camila.
We post new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
And on this episode, we're doing a Nolan film debate.
3, 2, 1.
Action. Today, Andrew, we have a very special guest with us. We have a freelance videographer. She's a DP, a camera operator. I've had the pleasure of working with her on a few projects. Hopefully we get to work together more. We have Camila on the show today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome. You want to tell our audience a little bit about you? Maybe some of your favorite movies or shows or...
Yeah. So I'm a freelance DP and camera operator in Tampa, and there's not a lot of women in the industry, so it's always nice to say that I'm a Hispanic, I'm Peruvian, and I'm a female in the industry, so that's always exciting. My favorite movies are like Christopher Nolan films for sure. So Interstellar would be my favorite movie ever. And
what a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, that means two of us out of the three are arguing for our favorite movie of all time. Arron, what about you?
I really love this movie. Yeah.
Not your favorite movie of all time?
I don't know my favorite movie
Starting
of all
off
time right now.
Starting off from a bad stem, but you were saying?
Okay.
Yeah, and I also love horror movies. Those are always fun too.
I just watched the first 3 Scream movies over the
really?
weekend. I've never seen them.
Those are funny. Those are good.
They were laughing so hard, honestly. It's funny as so.
That's weird. I don't watch a lot of horror movies, and for you to first say like, "Oh, those were funny."
Well, they came out like the first one was 1996, and they seem like they're like horror movies, like
they're just like
for
really
movie
campy.
fans.
Yeah.
They're like made to like appreciate the tropes of horror movies. Like it knows it's a horror movie. It's almost like
It's like those Geico commercials.
I was gonna say it's like Barbie. It's like self-aware and meta in a way. It's kind of cool, like that they do that.
Yeah. I also love A24, like Hereditary.
Oh my gosh, that's one of their best movies for sure. I love A24.
So Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing today?
All right, today we are doing the great Nolan debate. The three of us have different individual Nolan movies that we have picked as the best movie in his filmography, and we are going to argue and fight about which one of those is correct. Only one movie can be Nolan's best movie. I will be arguing personally for The Dark Knight, the second movie in Nolan's trilogy for Batman. Arron?
I will be arguing for Inception.
And Camila?
Interstellar.
All right, so obviously our audience already has their preconceived notion in their mind about which one of us is right, but we want you to wait, hear us out, watch this episode. You probably already have your own favorite Nolan movie, or it's not one of the ones that we didn't even pick and you think we're all idiots, but we want you to listen to these arguments and comment on whatever social media platform you're on. Comment to vote for who you think argued the best, who you think was right. Let us know, and you can comment on more than one social media platform. So if you're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're at, commenting multiple times will count as multiple votes for that team. So if you really feel that dedicated to your answer, make sure to hop over to other platforms and vote on there. We're Backseat Directing on all of our social media.
Yeah, I will say right now, Camila and I are at an advantage. Both of our movies start with in, so you're kind of out on your own little island right now.
I was going to say that you guys were both at a disadvantage because for one, you're arguing against me, and for two, you're arguing against possibly the best movie of all time.
Okay, let's not get carried away.
I mean, if there's anything I could do to give you guys a handicap, I would, honestly.
We can put a time limit for how much you can talk.
Like the Eddie Murphy movie or whatever, 100 words, or 1,000 words.
With that, we're going to start off with kind of opening statements for each movie. Camila, why don't you decide who goes first? You can choose yourself, or you can pick either Andrew or I to start off.
I'll pick Andrew.
Okay, here we go.
I'm so ready for it. Okay. All right. So today, if you're sitting in my classroom, I am going to educate the audience on why The Dark Knight is mathematically the best Christopher Nolan movie from a point of audience appeal, from a point of the creative side as well, and from the point of financial box office success. So I have a table broken down here that I can probably share when we cut and edit this into a TikTok. But the Dark Knight stands atop the revenue pile with $1 billion earned. Inception only making $870 million, and Interstellar making $773 million. I'm actually also going to prove how the ranking specifically goes: The Dark Knight, then Inception, then Interstellar. Sorry, Camila. But then as we move over to awards, this is the area that gets a little bit tricky. Both The Dark Knight and Inception had 8 Oscar nominations, and Inception had 4, while The Dark Knight had 2 wins. So I'm going to credit this to the fact that The Dark Knight is a comic book movie. They're obviously fighting a huge uphill battle. The movie, in your mind, what you think The Dark Knight got nominated for, just cross that out, because it didn't get nominated for best original screenplay, or I'm sorry, it didn't get nominated for anything with writing, and it didn't get nominated for best original score either. It's fair for them to lose cinematography, but they're competing against Slumdog Millionaire that year, and Slumdog Millionaire had a hell of a run at the Oscars that year. So it was a very competitive year, but Inception did have a competitive year too. A lot of good movies came out in 2011, but so they made a few less Oscar wins, but they still managed to win 2 Oscar wins as a comic book movie, which is really unheard of at this time period. The Oscars at the time were at 2009. The movie came out in 2008. And a posthumous award for Best Supporting Actor for Heath Ledger, which, rest in peace, one of the greatest actors of all time. And then when it comes down to IMDb score, The Dark Knight has the highest placement of the movies in the IMDb Top 100. It has the highest score, and it even has more ratings. So there's more people mathematically saying that this is a better movie than the other 2 movies. The Dark Knight has a 9.0 with 2.8 million people rating it, coming in 3rd place all time on the IMDb Top 100. Inception has an 8.8, slightly below, but a big difference in terms of IMDb overall, with 2.5 million ratings, and all the way down to 14th place in all time, which, what an impressive director. Directing the 3rd place, 100, and 14th place. And Interstellar drops all the way down, only with a 0.1 difference from Inception to an 8.7, but it only has 2 million ratings, and that drops it down to 24th place in all time. So there you go. Revenue, awards, arguable, and IMDb clears The Dark Knight as the best movie. Also, we've got, which I'll get into later, some of the most iconic performances of all time. Personally, in my opinion, the best cast Nolan has worked with up until Oppenheimer. It has amazing cinematography from Wally Pfister, and they were doing groundbreaking stuff at the time. They were pushing comic book movies into being serious, and they really changed the genre and the medium in that area. And they also were using one of 4 IMAX cameras in existence at the time of filming that movie. They actually destroyed one in the car scene. So only 4 IMAX cameras in the world. They're really breaking new ground on the technological front too. So I think that you can safely say that this is arguably the best movie of all time. For me, my personal favorite movie.
Well, thank goodness you had the IP of Batman really helping you out on that one.
So you're saying Batman makes the movie better? Thanks. I mean,
No, I'm saying that Batman is not original as much as Interstellar or Inception. So the fact that this came so close in box office, both of our movies really, and in ratings, and it was original, I think that kind of gives us the edge.
Would you
because you had decades.
Would you call $130 million close? Because, like, how close are you to $130 million?
That's pretty close when you're talking about $1 billion.
I don't know. It is. $130 million sounds like a lot of money to me.
All right, Camila, do you want to go next or you want me to go?
Also, so, by the way, when we're talking about money, I'm so sorry. When we're talking about money, we're also looking at 2008 versus 2011, 2014. So it's a couple years difference in terms of finances, which makes the inflation makes it harder to earn that money. Just saying.
All right, Camila, do you want to go next or you want me to go next?
You go.
All right.
Go after.
She wants to see the field.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue this movie, as you said, technical and numbers. I'm going to say this is the most complete Nolan film. We normally rate and rank our movies with 6 different categories. And I think out of these 3 movies, this is Nolan's complete film in each of those categories. The story is by far superior to The Dark Knight. It's way more complicated. And again, original idea. I feel like that's a big point for both of Camilla and I's movies, Interstellar and Inception.
I feel like original and more complicated are cool for the movie and they're pros. But
I didn't interrupt you when you were talking for your opening speech.
Okay. Well, probably because you didn't have any counterpoints, but that's you can.
Oh, right. This movie also spans across multiple genres. This was actually something that Justin was really harping about, how this film is a sci-fi, it's a thriller, it's a drama, romance, action. It's got everything all in one. And it has a bigger cast than both of the other two movies that this film is going against today in this debate. And Nolan did such a good job of balancing each character. In The Dark Knight was heavily carried by one actor, and so was Interstellar. This one was well balanced across the field, with Leonardo DiCaprio leading the way, Joseph Gordon-Levitt following him up perfectly. We have Elliot Page, who at the time was Ellen Page, Tom Hardy. So the cast, Cillian Murphy was in there as well, Michael King. We can just go on and on and on. And then let's talk about the special effects. They were mind-blowing. They were incredible. This was Nolan's most stylistic film in terms of like breaking out of reality. You know, a lot of his other movies, even outside the three that we're talking about, are very grounded, which is something that I love about Nolan's movies. But in this movie, he was able to kind of expand on that. And I actually watched this movie today. And the whole time, even though they're dealing with these like fantastical elements of dreaming, it all still felt real, which I feel like is really hard to do. And the effects were very, very well done. Cinematography, I think the lighting was very creative, the camera movement as well. And then, of course, just like the practical effects that we got to see. You know, I'm talking about the film itself. You're talking about the perception of the film. Both good arguments. But for me, I really want to like talk and dive into like what makes the film good, not that like, oh, it brought in a lot of money, you know, because there's movies out there that made $100 million that are really good movies. And let's see, what's the next point? Set design, character design. Again, I think kind of falls into the special effects. Everything looked really cool. The different puzzles and mazes that they created. And then the rewatchability for this, I think, is the highest out of all three of these movies.
I just want to say that on Ranker, most rewatchable movies had 119,000 filmgoers rank the top 770 most rewatchable movies. The Dark Knight came in at 29th place. Actually, Inception comes in all the way at 327th and Interstellar at 554th. So based on your point of rewatchability, I think I've got you there.
Again, you interrupted me during my opening statement. Dude, when neither of us interrupted you on your opening statement.
I've got 5 bullets of notes here of me not interrupting you. I can only do so much.
So, but the rewatchability is so high because the story is so complex that every time you watch it, you get a new like nugget from the movie. It just keeps adding to the story every time that you see it. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there and let Camila talk about Interstellar.
I will say Interstellar had like that same thing where every time you watched it, you're like, whoa, every time you learn something new and you notice something new, which I thought was really cool. So Interstellar is my favorite film. I don't know if you guys remember back in 2014 when you like watch the trailer and then you go to the theaters and you have like no idea what you're going to watch because of how simple like the trailer was. And you left that movie theaters like feeling so like happy and like I was sad, but but also just knowing like to me, I like left thinking like this is the best movie I've ever seen. I don't know if that happened for you guys too, but
no, I think you have a good point about the trailers because Nolan like really incredible directors like Nolan and Fincher and Scorsese like they get involved with cutting their trailers and they cut them in a way to where you're excited to watch the movie. Usually with really good music and you don't know, because.
Like
we always complain about spoilers in trailers and like how it can ruin a movie experience.
Yeah, typically if we know that we're going to go watch a movie, we try to avoid the trailers.
Right, me too.
Especially the second and or third trailer that comes out.
Yeah.
That's where like there's normally too much.
Right, like you feel like you'll already know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like the kind of going on a tangent, the Killers trailer.
Oh yeah.
Such a good trailer.
Yeah, it was so good.
Fincher cut it himself.
Yeah, because it didn't tell anything.
Right.
But it just got you really excited, and I don't need to know like what the whole plot is before I go into the movie.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Well, when you're a big director like Fincher and all like the people I named, like you have sway with the producers in the studio. You can say, I want this to be. Whereas like a lot of these big studios like Marvel, they get to push the director aside and be like, no, I want the Hulk to be in the Ragnarok trailer because I want people to buy tickets to see the Hulk.
Yeah.
You know, rather than, and they
Surprise,
undercut the
yeah.
surprise. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And because you're saying superhero movies rely on like the star power of the characters and not the quality of movie, right?
I'm saying that modern movies do. But this movie is obviously an outlier in the superhero genre. Thor Ragnarok is nowhere close to the top 10 of the IMDb.
Right,
100.
right. Why don't you continue Interstellar?
Also, like, I think it's so cool knowing that Interstellar didn't use any green screen. So whenever they were shooting in the spaceship, they were like had windows and they were using like I think it was frames and like in effects and camera as well to achieve that look. And I thought that was really cool. And that was before like virtual production and things like that were going on.
Yeah.
They used CGI to like create the black holes and things like that, but he tried not to use it as much.
He's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know we didn't really say it before we started, but like all three of these films are freaking
Incredible.
amazing. You know, like Andrew and I are kind of slatting each other's movies, but like they're all fantastic.
Yes. I agree.
He really hasn't done a truly bad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of one.
He's the
What's your least favorite Nolan movie?
Probably Dunkirk. Yeah, I haven't really seen it. I wasn't really interested in it.
Yeah, that was mine too. I feel like the cinematography was
amazing.
way up here, but then the story was way down here.
Yeah,
I feel like nothing happened.
The movie was so focused on like what they call the triptych storytelling that it like forgot to like really engross you into the story. It was cool the way they did it, like the different.
Did the characters even have names? Like, I'm not even sure.
something British?
Yeah.
Also, like as a DP, I feel like when I watched that movie, I didn't even think about the cinematography, which I think is a good sign of a good DP when you're not thinking about like the shots, the lighting while you're watching the movie. And this movie was shot by Hoyt van Hoytema, and he's known to be like one of the only DPs who can like handheld an IMAX camera because it's so heavy.
We talked about that on the show before. I think that's such a cool trivia fact
cool.
for Interstellar. He's so awesome for that.
He also like DP'd Nope, Oppenheimer, Dunkirk, Tenet, and things like that.
Yeah, I think he's working with Nolan now pretty like
More often,
locked
yeah.
in. Yeah.
Something none of us have mentioned, probably because it's at like an equal-ish playing field, is the music and score
Yeah.
for all three of these movies done by Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
Equal.
And yeah, I mean, unless you want to go ahead and admit that Inception's better.
No, so my movie's score is not just done by Hans Zimmer. They used also a second composer, a little known guy by the name of James Newton Howard, to do the score for Bruce Wayne, whereas Hans Zimmer did the score for Batman. So you've got like the diverging personalities. There are scores being done by two different iconic artists. So that like these are legendary artists, each of them like in their own right with like a filmography that would blow your mind. And the two of them doing separate scores so that they feel individualized to those characters is so cool. Like that's another one of my favorite trivia facts of all time for movies, them both doing different scores. And the ending to this movie is like, in my opinion, the best ending to a movie of all time. And it's because of like the percussive like drum beats at the end of the score that come in with that like amazing Jim Gordon speech. It's such a good ending. And it's largely in part because of that music, and the Joker has such a menacing score. I feel like Inception score is a little bit forgettable, but I feel like Interstellar score probably comes in second place on this because Interstellar has a really good score.
I
Really
do
good
want to
strings.
say that in Spotify, number 1 is Cornfield Chase for Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Just want to add that.
It's the Dark Knight. None of the scores are even on there.
Right.
Wow,
Oh, sad.
it's underappreciated. She got me on my own thing on my stats.
You haven't been doing your part. Okay, where do you guys want to go next? We've concluded our opening statements.
Right.
Well, I have a bunch of questions to ask you based on your opening statement, and then
Okay.
I have one for Camila also.
Go for it.
So, Aaron, for you, what do you mean by bigger cast?
Bigger cast.
Yeah.
More More main characters.
I mean, I have Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah,
and
but they
Cillian Murphy.
all of those get overshadowed by the Joker and Heath Ledger's performance.
They're all big presents. You always do this when we talk about The Dark Knight.
But it's true, because when
you're
you-
just gonna get loud to talk over me. So let me
And
say
so
my
are
piece
you.
first. No, but I was in the middle of talking. So you always bring up how good Heath Ledger's performance is, because I do think it's the best performance of all time in any movie, at least that I've seen. You always bring it up as a negative, saying it's so good that that's not like a complaint about the movie. It's so good that it overshadowed other people. No, it's great, and the other performers are great too. He just gave one of the best performances of all time in cinema history. Like, you can't continually bring that up as a knock on the movie. It's not a bad
I didn't.
thing.
I brought it up as a strength for Inception, saying that they balanced all of
First
the
of
actors
all, you also
and
said
characters.
that like none of the characters were like leagues above. Leonardo DiCaprio is the star of your movie, isn't leagues above of everyone else in the movie.
Everyone did such a fantastic job. When was the last time you saw this
He
movie?
brought the same weight to that movie as Cillian Murphy did, right? Like, no, like Leonardo DiCaprio put that movie on his back. I mean, Elliot Page is amazing and is probably like the runner up there, but it's Leo. Like, it's the same thing as the argument you're making. It doesn't hurt your movie, but it doesn't hurt my movie either.
Okay.
So stop bringing it up as a negative.
Okay.
Heath Ledger is so good in that movie. It doesn't deserve to be like tarnishing the movie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that this is about multiple people. Yours is about kind of two.
All three movies have big casts.
Yes, but carried more so by one person for your two movies.
Matthew
I'd say.
McConaughey, Heath Ledger, Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, it's all the same shit.
Okay. What's your other question?
The other one was, how did Leo not carry the movie? But we answered that. And then I wanted to point out that you brought up a point from Justin, so you needed help for your argument. That's not a question. I just wanted to say that.
What?
You said how Justin was making a point that there's lots of different genres in the movies, but there's lots.
Yeah,
of
because I talked to my friends. You haven't talked to anyone about The Dark Knight
you found
before?
a friend. I mean, I didn't need help because I know my movie.
Yeah, so you've never talked to anyone
But
about The
also,
Dark Knight?
my movie has plenty of genres as well. So there's
like what?
Action, drama, romance, comedy. Like,
Does it have romance?
Yes.
Or comedy?
there's romance between. There's literally a love triangle, and there's comedy. That whole scene where they're driving in the giant car where they're transporting who they think is Batman, and it's not Two-Face, but at the time, Aaron Eckhart's character, they're transporting him. That guy's all making cheesy one-liner jokes, like, "Oh, we're sitting ducks down." Like, it's all jokes. Nolan jokes.
So like one like push-off guy who's like barely in the movie at all. That makes it a comedy genre.
It hits the comedy genre just as much as Inception does. There's a bunch of jokes. There's jokes between Bruce and Alfred. He's like, "Oh, I suppose you're gonna like let me go down for this," and he's like, "I'm gonna tell them it was all your idea." Like, there's a bunch of one-off jokes. That's how Nolan's comedy is in his movies. It's like not as pronounced as Step Brothers, but it's the same amount of comedy that's in the other two movies.
Okay. What was your next question?
I also want to say that financial success and ratings are proven indicators of how well a movie performs based on how the general audience perceives it, because you tried to knock those points saying, "Oh, there's movies that are made on $10 million that are so good." But
Yeah, but part of what makes a movie great is also subjective. You know, like a movie isn't all just stats. It's not like a
that's
football
fair.
player, you
That's
know,
fair.
like
But
like
my
it's more
stats
it's
are-
more than just the revenue that it brought
these
in.
stats are insanely valuable. You've got 2.8 million
know, like-
people saying it's a great movie.
Yeah, but like our podcast has 23 views. Does that mean our podcast is bad?
No, but you can't like refute it with a negative. You know what I'm saying? Like, if our podcast had 20 million views, that would mean it's good. It's just because like the reverse isn't true doesn't mean that the like opposite logic applies. That's like a logical fallacy. It has a name. I just don't remember what it is.
Okay. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask you about something I thought of when you're talking about your movie. You said the ending of the movie makes you cry. So like I said, I think that The Dark Knight has the best movie ending in history. It's like optimistic, it's hopeful, it has sacrifice, and like it gets me amped up. Like I've talked about before on the show, I listened to the ending of the scene, the Jim Gordon speech, like I listened to it like on my first day of high school. Like when I was a kid, like when I was like needed to like feel inspired, I listened to that. I love it so much. But I feel like the ending of Interstellar like upsets me because I feel like he's worked so hard for something to like get back to his daughter, and then he abandons it in favor of chasing after Anne Hathaway, which to me doesn't make sense. Right. Which I don't want to complain about Nolan's writing, but it doesn't make the most sense to me as through his journey so far. I get that it makes sense in this in the idea that like his main thing is being an explorer and he's always wanted to go out into the stars, but I feel like he's like a crap dad, and that upsets me.
Right.
So
no,
like I feel like I love the ending to The Dark Knight so much. I wanted you to tell me what's so good about the Interstellar ending. Maybe I can like see it in a new light.
Right. I think more of like the ending when he finally sees his daughter. I think that's what I was talking about. But yeah, I do
after
agree.
that, it's like-
Then it's like, yeah. I do agree with you. I remember thinking like, wait, what? Why is he leaving his daughter? And like, they finally got together, and that's what we've been waiting for this whole time.
That scene when he's like watching them age on the video camera,
That
it's
is
like the most
best scene.
inspired acting. It's like the best scene in the movie. He's crying, like you want to cry with him.
Right.
You're like, man, it must be like imagining yourself in those shoes, watching your loved ones grow up without you. But then like when he finally gets to her, it's like he's like, peace.
Yeah.
Apparently, that I just watched an interview about that scene, and that was the first take that they did, and it was his live reaction to what they were saying on those like recordings.
Yeah, I just saw a video of Timmy Chalamet talking about it too, and he was saying, I thought my role in the movie was so much bigger because he's like young then. I don't know how old he was. Like,
14.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, he's young.
Or he was playing a 15-year-old,
Yeah.
I think.
So he's super young. And like he said, when he was filming it, like it just felt so big, like you're on a big set. He's probably doing like a couple takes. Like you don't know how much is going to get edited into the movie. And he's like, yeah. And then I'm watching that scene and I'm like, he's like, it's great because it's like the best acting. It's the best scene in the whole movie. But I'm like, when are they going to cut to me? And they like never do. But he's like, but then he's like, of course they don't. Like they shouldn't have cut off McConaughey in that scene. Like,
Yeah.
So good.
But I have some like category-based things you want to go into. I can't read from here. My vision's not that good, but I see you have some categories too.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just get cinematography over with. At least for me, I feel like it's like the where I have the least argument against you guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Interstellar is pretty close to Inception. I mean, I talked about the practical effects, and then you also did how they didn't use any green screen, which is
Right.
pretty amazing since they're in space.
Right.
You know, like how do you even do that? And Nolan just finds a way to like do these things that no one else is doing when they just kind of rely on special effects and CGI and stuff.
The practical effects are so cool. Like the giant hallway for you. For my movie, it's flipping the truck. Like he completely flipped that semi truck. So awesome. And like so much stuff for Interstellar. Like the practical ships and Tars, I think his name is, right? Driving through the cornfield, that really did all of that. Like it's so cool.
I do love that scene where like the school bus with
Oh yeah. And that's also
bank.
best movie opening, best movie ending, best performance by a supporting actor of all time. Like, is this best score? Like, is this not like just the best movie of all time?
Best picture.
Okay.
It was the best movie of the year.
Lost to Slumdog Millionaire, but I think that the consensus since then would be that The Dark Knight's a better movie because Slumdog Millionaire is not in the IMDb top 10. I'll keep going back to that. Can you guys name a better movie opening than The Dark Knight? Even if you like step out of the argument for a second and just be objective. This is the best movie opening ever. That bank heist.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's
It was really good.
It's cool, but he's just standing on the side of the road in his Joker makeup. It just doesn't.
He picks the
It
weirdest
just
thing.
doesn't make any sense,
Aaron,
you know.
when
Like
he watches this movie, he literally only sees the Joker for one thing, because that's all he ever talks about, and he only
because Christian Bale's performance wasn't that good as Batman.
It is good,
But
it's
it
Christian
isn't.
Bale.
I know, just because he's a good actor doesn't mean that he's the best Batman or does the best job as
I
Batman
think he was also in Vice that same year and like won an Oscar for Best Actor in Vice. Like
in a different movie.
he's so
So he
good.
was just half-assing it in Dark Knight.
He was. Did you see how jacked he was? He wasn't half-assing anything.
He's so worried about working out. He forgot to act.
Dude, you say these words to Christian Bale's face.
I'd love to meet him.
You would not be talking about him like this.
Before we continue our debate on the best Nolan film, I want to take a moment and thank the audience for watching. Your support is very much appreciated. Make sure you vote down below. Who do you think is arguing their movie the best, and which movie of these three is Nolan's best movie? Andrew, I think you had a question for us.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you guys, now that we're like pretty deep into the debate, how prepared did you feel overall, like before we started going into this? And then how prepared do you feel now? Because I feel like I felt really prepared, but we planned this like weeks ago. So I was
Months ago.
I was really prepared then, and then I was
a long time ago.
I was really prepared then. Then I was kind of nervous today because I was like, oh, I haven't looked at these notes in like a couple of weeks. but I do know the movie pretty well. Like this is the movie I've seen the most in my whole life for sure.
I felt decently prepared. Debates are always tricky, especially because we didn't have a lot of like rules or anything or guidelines on this debate. It was very broad, so it was kind of hard coming up with like, all right, which points do we really want to talk about? But I just watched the movie today, so I felt prepared in that sense in terms of like my appreciation and excitement for the movie. When was the last time you watched The Dark Knight? I know you said it's the most that you've seen.
I've watched it in the last 3 months for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And then how did you feel going into the debate?
Yeah, I think I felt prepared, but just like you said, like I had notes, so I had to look back at my notes.
Yeah.
And then my close friend just came over last week, and I showed her the film, and she hates space movies, and she loved it. So that made me feel really good.
It's always nice. Like I don't really like westerns, but I love Django Unchained. So it's
Yeah,
like when a movie is so good, it can like.
Break the genre.
Yeah, exactly.
What if we talk about the story a little bit? And I'm going to kind of tee you up here, Camilla. Both Andrew and I'd say, is a little bit more action, a little bit more higher packed movies than Interstellar. To me, I found Interstellar maybe longer than it needed to be. I think it took a long time for things to actually develop. Do you want to talk about the story a little bit and maybe try to convince me and the audience that it was good?
So I haven't seen Inception in a long time, but I do feel like Interstellar, what it has, like those movies don't have, is like that focus on the father and daughter relationship and like the idea that like love can transcend time and dimensions. And I think that is like the main story of like this whole movie. And I feel like I don't really see that in Inception or The Dark Knight. But yeah.
I'd like to counter that actually, because love is transcending different dimensions in Inception. Because he's going through multiple dream layers where Maul, his wife, is like kind of infiltrating the dreams and interrupting things. And then we get the two big emotional scenes. One in the elevator scene when Elliot Page's character comes down and kind of intrudes on him when he's dreaming. And we kind of get to see like the turmoil that he's going through. And then we get to see kind of it all be wrapped up in the ending where they talk about being in the void, the lost space. I forget what they call it, the dream space. But love is literally going through these different layers of dreams, and his wife isn't even alive anymore. You know, so like, I think it's very similar but different.
Well, I think that your version of it is like a darker, more twisted. Like I think what Camilla's saying is like pure, like a more pure form of love is displayed. And I don't think that's really, I can't think of like another Nolan movie where it's portrayed like it is in Interstellar, because it's not really like, I mean, Cobb has his kids and he has his wife, but his wife is like, had her mind's been demented.
Right.
And his kids are only in the last shot of
by him accidentally as well.
That's what I mean. Like it's complete. It's like a very different perspective. Whereas like, I feel like Interstellar is a little bit more hopeful, I guess. His journey back to his daughter, more positive.
Yeah.
One's not worse than the other. I mean, I like dark stuff as much as the next guy.
Yeah.
But it is unique to Nolan's filmography.
Yeah. And then Inception, you said too, is unique. What about yours in the emotional part of the movie?
In the emotional part of the movie, I feel like The Dark Knight is really unique because it's exploring somebody being pulled into two different personalities, and he's basically choosing between the city he loves, his legacy.
How is that unique? It's also in two other of his movies.
Well, the story of Batman as a whole contains like the same story.
Yeah.
But this movie really focuses on like Batman being pulled between those two lives. Like the Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman isn't about like how much he wants to just live a normal life. This is unique to the other Batman movies because he wants to be with Rachel, but being with her means sacrificing like his parents' legacy and everything that that's been driving him since he was a child. So he's like literally being torn in two in a way Batman isn't in the other movies. Even if that's like a part of a superhero storyline, this is like unique to this Batman story.
No, that was a good way to put it.
I think that it's displayed in such a cool way in this movie. Like the beyond like the emotional core of the movie, like Batman versus the Joker is like chaos versus justice. Like he says, like it's when an unstoppable object meets an immovable object, like or an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Like it's such a cool story seeing them go to head to head with two heavyweight actors portraying them. And like you can't say that the interrogation scene in The Dark Knight isn't one of the best movie scenes of all time. Like it's cemented itself in movie history. This movie is like the plot is so good that this movie is like iconography. Like kids dress up to be Batman and the Joker. Who's dressing up as Cobb? Like
I mean,
who's dressing up as Murph? You know, like nobody.
Right.
again, I don't think that's necessarily like just the movie. That's also just the superhero character itself. You know, like people are dressing up as all different kinds of superheroes. You know, even if they don't have a Nolan quality film behind them. You know what I mean? But going back to the kind of the emotional weight of the movie, I see where you're saying like he has that emotional like kind of tear between the two personalities. But I will say, watching Inception today, I really felt emotional myself while I was watching it. I also felt that impact when I was watching Interstellar.
So you don't feel emotional at the end scene of The Dark Knight when like Two-Face is...
Not where like I feel like the weight of the movie, but like not to where it's like, oh man, like that really hit me. You know, like I don't feel it as strong as the other two movies. Not to say that it's not emotional,
Dude,
but
it's so like it gets me when at least when Two-Face is like lie to her, lie how I lied, like how he had to like be on the phone with the person he loved being tormented by the Joker as she was blown to pieces, and the guilty face is like, I let that murdering psychopath blow her or blow him half to hell. That's like Batman's guilt, and then Two-Face's guilt towards Rachel, like about not protecting her. Like I said, there's a love triangle. That's like the emotional core of the movie, and one of them is forced to be the hero, one of them is forced to make the ultimate sacrifice, and one of them is forced to become the villain. And it's like all the routes that Batman could face, that a hero can face. Like Rachel takes one of the roles, Harvey takes one, and Bruce takes one. And like Jim Gordon's family being on the line at the end of the movie, like the stakes are really high. Like I feel like it's emotional. I don't know. That's just me. I feel like audiences resonated with the emotionality of The Dark Knight. Like an emotional core to a superhero movie that wasn't just like comedy action or like big laughs. Like the end of this is a drama. The end of this is like life or death stakes. And I feel like audiences really resonated with like a darker tone. And I feel like that's because of the emotionality. Like it's like the Joker's trying to he's trying to like corrupt the soul of Gotham. Like people always say in the movie, like there's two ships he's trying to get to blow each other up. And like we see hope in the end of that movie, like the hope that we're better than like our baser instincts. Like it's really I don't know. It's cool as hell.
Yeah. Good points. Good points.
What did you think of when Maggie Gyllenhaal replaced Katie Holmes?
I don't really have anything against Katie Holmes. I feel like people said like she was really wooden. I mean, I thought she was fine. I mean, the first time I was watching the Batman Begins, I was like 7 or something. So I mean, I wasn't super critical, and so that's like where my base opinions were formed. So it's hard. But I think that Maggie Gyllenhaal did a better job. I mean, I like her a lot. I mean, she has a lot more spunk and a lot more like vibrancy to the character. Like that opening where she's talking to Harvey and she's like, you're Gotham's DA. If you're not getting shot, you're not doing your job right. Like she has no, that's her boyfriend. She just watched him attempted murder and she's like laughing it off. Like her character is very strong. She's like leaving Bruce to make the decision to be with Harvey. Like I think she really rounds out the character in that movie. Everybody does such a good job. I mean, Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox is so good. Gary Oldman always is like legendary. And like, it's beyond that final speech. It's the whole movie. Like his character is willing to sacrifice like his personal life and to try and protect his family. He like fakes his own death. Like the characters are also committed to their roles in Gotham and the actors are so committed to their roles in The Dark Knight. And I feel like everybody is so good in this. Like they're firing on all cylinders. Are they? I don't know. I feel like this cast is the best of the three.
It's good. It's good.
I just love Christian Bale though.
Yeah, it's good. It's really hard to debate this
Because you don't want to knock any of these other films.
all of every move or every aspect of all three of these movies are really good.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they all have areas where they could edge out the other, but I feel like The Dark Knight has the most areas where it edges out.
How so? Outside of ratings and stats and stuff, but strictly the movie itself.
I would say best story, best acting, best sound design, and best rewatchability. Based on our categories, that's what
I do feel like it's hard to say best story because it's the Batman, you know?
Yeah.
Well, so the story to this one is what I really like about this. Aaron said
I don't think it's Nolan's best story.
Aaron said that he's like, and now go. Aaron said that Inception is like the most Nolan movie, but I think that Nolan's writing is at its best, and particularly in this movie when he's writing with his partner, his brother Jonathan Nolan. And this movie actually has 3 writers, The Dark Knight. It's David S. Goyer, Jonathan Nolan, and Chris Nolan. And I think like those extra hands really help like solidify this movie because there's not a piece of bad, misplaced dialogue in this movie, and the edit is so good. I mean, this movie really should have won Best Editing, but it lost to Slumdog Millionaire. I mean,
I feel like you're arguing points of why Inception has the edge over The Dark Knight, that he didn't need the help of other writers to make this, because we're arguing best Nolan film, and he had more of a hand in this film than he did yours.
Well, so say we're arguing best Nolan film, right? Which one of Nolan's films is the best? No matter to what degree other people helped him, if they helped him make the movie better, it's a better Nolan movie.
I see where you're going, but my chair is caught on my cord. All right, we're good.
I mean, it's not a matter of him needing help. Do you think Nolan ever needs help? Do you think Hans Zimmer needed help with this score? They recognized other people's talents and used them to make the movie better.
Yeah. Camila, what do you think?
I don't know. I think, because like The Dark Knight is my second favorite movie. So it's hard to debate.
So if we all had to vote, then we agree. I'd vote Dark Knight. If we all had to vote for a movie that's not ours, I would vote for Inception, unfortunately, after you just pick mine. Aaron, who would you pick other than yours?
The Dark Knight.
So then I have 2 votes.
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
Why not? If they were all equally loved, then we would each pick the movie of the person to our right, but we didn't.
Not really. Okay. Yeah, Interstellar for me is a little bit lower on my Nolan list.
What? Why?
It's kind of the story. I feel like it just takes a little bit long to develop, and that there's parts in there that just don't necessarily need to be in there. I think the ending would have been more impactful if it did end with him kind of behind the bookcase and stuff.
I do feel like when I watched this movie and your movie, I think both of our movies, I felt like at the end, like I was thinking, like, how did they write this movie? Mm-hmm. Like I was like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a lot more technically challenging to write your 2 movies in terms of sequencing and like how complicated they are.
Right.
The Dark Knight, it would have been easier to write in terms of like the storyline being linear,
Right.
but it's hard to write such incredible dialogue also. So I think
But
that
the Dark
script is
Knight, the
really
Dark
good.
Knight's also like heavily based on a lot of other influences. One, the comic books, but then also Heat and The Long Halloween. Like it's taking a lot of pieces from other puzzles, you know, and kind of putting it all together. It does a really good job at that. But I feel like that is it helps kind of cultivate everything together when there's already all these ideas out there.
Again, I'm saying no.
But then,
I'm
like,
gonna say repeat. No matter what helped him make the movie, if like a magic bunny came down from the
but,
sky
like,
and helped him make the movie,
something
it
being
still
more
made a better
original,
movie.
something being more original goes into it being a better movie. Like it's.
But half the time, I feel like what you're saying is like, yeah, The Dark Knight's better, but these things made it help.
I didn't
Heath
say
Ledger
that
helped
The Dark-
make it better,
that
and then
The Dark Knight was
Jonathan
better.
Nolan helped make it better, but it's better.
No, I feel like you're twisting my words to be on your side of the argument, which good for you. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like because it had all this like other sources, like it takes a few points off of
In your book, but I just don't really understand why. Like, do you take points off when you watch Sherlock Holmes because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a book about it?
we're not comparing Sherlock Holmes, but if we were comparing it to 2 other originals, I feel like I would give the edge in that aspect to the originals, depending on like what we're arguing. I mean, that's kind of like hard to.
You're also like,
really compare.
I mean, everything is inspired by something at this point, and to say it's inspired by Heat and The Long Halloween when those 2 things actually have like completely different stories to The Dark Knight. I mean, I don't think it takes anything away from the movie. They're completely different stories, even though
It's a retelling of other stories, but other stories that are directly associated to your characters.
I mean, I feel like we're getting bogged down at this point, but we just disagree.
Fair enough.
We're gonna get into a lot of repeating ourselves, but I want to hear, like, I feel like I've talked a lot, so I want to hear more about what you guys think specifically puts your movies over The Dark Knight.
I feel like we've already kind of talked about
The
that.
story, right?
Yeah,
like
I'd say
a
the
little more
story, the
complex.
visual effects, the cinematography.
I mean,
The
you kind of just said the same thing back to back.
what?
No, you're good.
What do you mean back to back? You asked the same question that we've already talked about. How did I say it back to back?
Well, you said visual effects, which fits into cinematography, but
Well, it does in our like ranking system, but it is like its own like subcategory. You know, like I think the lighting and the composition and the camera movement stuff is very grounded in The Dark Knight. The color palette's very dull, but in Inception and Interstellar, it's a lot more dynamic. It's more pleasing to the eye. But then also, like, you guys are heavy on practical effects, but then Interception both has practical effects and visual effects that really elevate the story.
you said interception.
Interception. Keep doing that. Their names are too similar for me.
Well, me personally, I've made all my points for The Dark Knight. I'm ready to let the audience decide. I don't know if you guys want any closing remarks for your movies.
No, I think what I just said will be my closing remarks. Camila, do you have anything else to add?
If you haven't seen Interstellar, you should go watch it and then decide.
What Aaron talked about, Interstellar does have the longest runtime. Me and his movies are
Right.
both around 2 hours and 30 minutes, and yours is 2 hours and 50 minutes. I feel like that's kind of where the movie falls behind for me too. Why I said I would have picked Interstellar over why I said I would have picked Inception over Interstellar is because Interstellar just has a little bit more of screen time where I feel like they just didn't pack enough stuff in there. But the surprise Matt Damon cameo is amazing. I love Matt Damon to death. He should have named Oppenheimer Impenheimer, because then he would have 3 movies that start with IM.
He's not done, so maybe he will have another one. It'll be his in trilogy.
Hopefully he never quits. Hopefully they put his brain into a robot and he just keeps making movies.
A robot. I don't know if I'd want a Nolan robot film. Would you?
I mean, if his brain, it would be like an android if his brain's in it.
Going into the AI conversation now, and then all the directors are going to go on strike if they're having to work against an AI.
Intelligence wouldn't be artificial. The body would be artificial because his brain would be.
I see. So you're taking like his actual brain into
Yes,
this robot.
yeah.
I see what you're saying. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And possibly possible. Huh?
Sounds like something he'd make a movie about, honestly.
That'd be cool. Nolan, your next idea.
All right, well, this has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate you coming onto the show, Camila.
Thank you.
Somebody needed to argue for Interstellar. It needed to be said. It's definitely one of, no matter how much I trash both of you guys' movies, all of his movies, I think, belong in, most of his movies belong in the top 100, top 50 movies of all time. He's a really incredible director. I love the chance to get to sit down and talk about it because I love him and his movies to death. I want to thank the audience, especially anyone who's made it this far to like the 50-minute or so mark with us. We make sure again to comment and let us know who you think won this debate. Comment and let us know what your favorite Chris Nolan movie is, even if it's not one of the 3 that we discussed here. Let us know why we're wrong. We love to mix it up and argue in the comments. And you can comment on multiple platforms to leave multiple votes for the whatever your pick is to vote for. So definitely make sure to leave a bunch of votes on every platform that we're on for The Dark Knight. We're on pretty much everywhere. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, TikTok. We're do a Spotify poll. We're on Threads. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. So make sure to rate, follow, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Reviews help us out a ton. Make sure to share us with friends and family. And
And that's a wrap.